I made the decision to apply for this ROTC program, and it's a way for me to pay for college. It turned out that it was something I loved and had a passion for. We can measure galvanic skin response measurements on people's fingers. You can measure, pulse rate. You can watch eye movement, and we do this to, test different concepts on customers. HR was, until later in my career, always seen as kind of the obstacle, the impediment. And now I've realized that it's everything, and it's because it's people. And if you can't get the people right, you can't take care of your customers.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Enigma. Huge thanks for watching and listening. We have almost 300 conversations now captured with leaders from all over the world, from all kinds of disciplines, and we are still insatiably curious. There's also going to be some big news because there's going to be some big changes to the Leadership Enigma coming up, so watch this space. I am super excited. It's time to take the podcast to the next level, whatever that means, but we're going to the next level. And this is the second episode that I'll have recorded today, and I am super excited because I am joined by John Ackerman. Now, there is a great story to this as well, because we're going to explore John's world right now, because what does it take to lead one of the most visible, complex, and emotionally charged gateways on Earth? So in this episode, I'm going to chat to John, who is the CEO of Los Angeles World Airports. Now, that is the organization behind the world-famous LAX. That is an airport that I used to fly in and out of as a child in order to see my family. But it's more than an airport. It's really a symbol of Los Angeles. It's a pressure point for millions and millions of travelers. And it's a place currently being transformed while the world is watching. So the Olympics are coming to LA in 2028, so the stakes couldn't be any higher. So this is a great episode to explore leadership under scrutiny and the challenge of rebuilding a global airport whilst you've got to keep everything and everyone moving. What is the future of the passenger experience, and what is the future of the iconic Spider building? We'll talk about that as well. It's probably appeared in more Hollywood movies than any other building. So we'll talk about ambition, identity, and legacy. This is a conversation about pressure, reinvention, and leading at the intersection of infrastructure, emotion, and global expectation. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Join me just after the break while we chat to John Ackerman. Hi, I'm Adam Pacifico, and welcome to the Leadership Enigma, a world-ranked, award-winning podcast that's insatiably curious as regards what leaders do, how they do it, and importantly, why. We'll delve into the human doing, but even deeper into the human being and the power of human-centered leadership to drive sustainable change. So whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, corporate executive, each week we speak to global experts, academics, rising stars, ambitious upstarts and disruptors, as together we will discover that success leaves clues. John, it's a huge warm welcome to the Leadership Enigma. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Adam, and thank you so much for having me this morning.
It's an absolute pleasure. I know you and I connected a number of weeks ago, actually, so I am truly excited to have this conversation with you. It's looking good. It's sounding good. I think a bit of a shout out. Tell everyone where you are right now.
So right now I'm in the Melrose Podcast Studios in Los Angeles, and I'm up on the Sunset Strip. And I think one of the things that's amazing about Los Angeles, I'm new to the city, new Angelino, but one of the things that is so cool is almost everybody in the world has a mental image of LA, and they've probably seen it in a movie, they've seen it in a music video, and the Sunset Strip is featured in so many movies, so many things, and so many amazing entertainment acts started here. There's the whiskey, the Troubadour, the Comedy Store. So many of that cool stuff is literally within a half a mile of where I'm sitting. So it feels a little bit surreal to be doing something that is vaguely entertainment in a city like LA up on the Sunset Strip. So I'm just delighted to be here.
Well, John, even through that description, you are immediately way more cool than I am. Trust me. Although, to be fair, we're sweltering here in London. It's kind of balmy hot, and we're not quite geared up for it. So you said that you're a new Angelino because Los Angeles isn't home for you, or wasn't home for you, but is now. And I'm going to talk to you in a moment about this being your first CEO role, and what a role it is, John. But just help everyone understand your journey thus far. Just give us a little bit of a précis of what your leadership and corporate journey has involved.
Thanks. I've got I think a different journey, I think, than most
We
people,
like
kind
those.
of called a non, a non-linear journey. I started off, coming out of university. I was fortunate enough, to join, the Marine Corps, and serve my country. I was able to, fly airplanes. I actually flew an airplane that was invented, by the British. So it's great that I'm, talking to you, the Harrier. Left the Marine Corps, and joined an airline, as a pilot. Actually found out, I'm sure we'll come back to this later, found out that, well, I loved flying and I loved aviation and I loved the people. I didn't really love that specific job, but I found my way into other parts, of the airline and ended up in leadership and management roles, in the airline. And then, brief detour, into finance, which was actually, important and a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. But aviation is something that, I think we talk about it getting in your blood, and I
Yeah.
found my drawn back. And for the last part of my career, I've been a leader at, major, U.S. airports, global airports. So that's how I found myself sitting in this chair in Los Angeles talking to you today.
So I love the fact that there's a real aviation theme to a number of conversations that I seem to have had in the studio today. Can I just ask a question, John? Was aviation in the blood? Was military in the blood? Was that already in the family somewhere, or was that just something unique to you?
It really wasn't. It was. My family still wonders, where I got this idea. I had a couple of uncles who had served in Vietnam, but it wasn't. Didn't talk a lot about it, so nobody really knows, where I got the idea. But I had decided I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, the U.S. Naval Academy, for some strange reason. And was, talking to a guidance counselor in high school, who I was telling him why I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, and he said, if you consider going to a different university and, getting a scholarship from the military, and in our country we have this thing called ROTC.
Right.
And I said I'd heard nothing about, never didn't know anything about that because I knew nothing about the military. Just knew that I wanted to go to Annapolis for no particular reason. And he said, it's kind of like Annapolis, but you can, drink beer and you can have a girlfriend. And that got me thinking, because I think I was about 14, 15 at
These
the
are
time.
important things, John. These are important.
I made the decision, to apply for this ROTC program, and
Yep.
it's a way for me to pay for college, help my family, get me through college, help me get me through college. And it turned out that it was something I loved and had a passion for, and it really changed the trajectory of, of my life and of my career. At the time, it was kind of a radical decision that was, nobody really expected me to make, but I made it, and looking back on it, it really did change my life.
Did your military training and career, do you think, helped you now in corporate leadership and also the first CEO role, which we're about to talk about? Were there elements of that you felt you could really transfer across?
Absolutely. I think, I think people talk often about, or people, are you a born leader? Are you a trained leader? Is it acquired? And, I think there's probably an element of both, but I believe deeply in training, and,
Yes.
the military, the leadership training, I can speak for leadership training in the Marine Corps because that's where I served, but, an extraordinary amount of the training time was devoted to how to lead and how to follow it. It takes both. And I think, it's funny. A lot of people are surprised when they find out I was in the military, particularly the Marine Corps. It seems to surprise people. I'm not sure. I never
Maybe
know
watching
quite.
the movies again, John.
I don't think people would think I lead like a military officer that
Right.
doesn't work in corporate America, but many of the fundamental principles that I learned, in the Marine Corps, and learn about leadership, I think I do carry, to this day. I remember, one of the stories that stuck with me my whole life. I think I was probably 19 years old. And I was in this, as a university, and, paying for it by being part of the
Hmm.
military. And we had a program where we had a drill team where we threw rifles and spun them and did all the, kind of the performance. And as a reward, every year we got to go to Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And for us, it was about an 18-hour drive from our university to New Orleans. And they would rent these giant, RVs, big Winnebagos. But we were too young to drive them. So really all we could do was have a rolling party. So we would have an 18-hour basically party in New Orleans and spend time marching around down there and seeing the sights and enjoying ourselves and coming back. But my first year, it was the middle of the night, and we were somewhere in Mississippi or Alabama, 1 a.m. and pull into a McDonald's, and we're all hungry, and we pile out of this RV, and we run in, and we're all standing in line trying to figure out what to order. And our Marine captain, the officer who's the actual real Marine who's in charge of us and responsible for this whole group of little maniacs running around,
Yeah.
walks in, the door opens, he walks in, and we immediately, everybody kind of steps aside and, to let him go to the front of the line. And he stops and he gets in the back of the line. And of course, we're all saying, sir, you can go to the front. And he says, no, you get it. And he insisted that we all ordered and we all got our food. And he got his food and we ate, and we got back in the RV. And he said, somebody said, why didn't you go to the front of the line? And he said, my job as a leader is to make sure that you eat. And if I ate first, how would I ever know if you ate? And it was a really early lesson. The Marine Corps didn't call that servant leadership. They just called it, being a Marine officer and taking care of your Marines. But it's something that stuck with me. And it was, make sure, your job as a leader is to make sure that your people have what they need. In this case, he decided that we needed food. And given the amount of alcohol we had consumed, food was probably a really, really good
That's
idea.
another story altogether, John.
But it really, and it sticks with me to this day, because I think a fundamental job of a leader is to, set their people up for success and give them what they need to be successful, and make sure that they have it. And that was a Marine way of, the leader eats last. The
Yes.
leader does a lot of things last to make sure that the people they lead are taken care of first. You have to take care of your team first. The leader takes care of the team.
Yeah, I think there's even a book that's titled "Leaders Eat Last," and I know Simon Sinek talks about leaders speaking last as well. So there's some real research behind that as well. So John, let's talk about this role that you've taken on, because it's your first CEO role, and boy, oh boy, what a role it is. And I know when you and I chatted a few weeks ago, you said that you like to fix and build, and maybe that comes from your experience, from your military career. And so just help people understand what it is that you walked into, because you took on the role a couple of years ago now, didn't you? And LAX, World Airports, it's a number of airports, but a lot of people will know of LAX for a variety of reasons, even if they've never been there. But can you just help people understand the scale of LAX? So just paint a picture for us.
Sure. So you mentioned we do operate really three airports.
Yep.
We have LAX. We have an airport called Van Nuys, which is a general aviation, a private jet airport, which is actually one of the biggest general aviation airports in the entire world as well.
Right.
It's in the top 5 of every list. And then we actually own a lot of land around an airport called Palmdale, which is about 80 miles north of Los Angeles. And it was a future expansion airport. It's really a fascinating place. It's where the U.S. government does a lot of the famous Lockheed Skunk Works is there, where they do a lot of the secret military flying on that airfield. And we own all the land surrounding that. But for the most part, LAX, to your point, gets the notoriety. It's one of my teammates loves to use the line that it's, what other airport in the world, do you know by its 3 letters, LAX? I mean, there's really no other airport that you refer to even that way. So even our identifier letters are special. And what LAX is, I mean, so every year about 75 million customers, come through our airport. We're the largest, what we call local airport in the world. Other airports have more passengers, but many of those airports will be connecting and not actually visiting the city. A vast majority of the people who take off and land at LAX every day are, either, Angelinos going out and to see the world, or the world coming to LA. So we are the gateway, for the world, and we take that really seriously. My team has about 3,400 employees right now.
Right.
When I got here a couple of years ago, we were down below 2,800. We'd really been set back during the pandemic, and it struggled to build back. But we've pulled out of that now. It's about 3,400 actual teammates of mine. But what's really cool about this job and about this organization, this airport, is that every day 50,000 people come here to work. So we call them badge holders. If you walk around an airport, everybody those little airport badge. We have 50,000 people every day, so it's the size of a kind of a medium-sized city, and that's everything from custodians to landscapers to engineers, to pilots, obviously, and flight attendants and the rental car teams and people who are cooking food and serving food. So it's this fascinating, kind of complex entity that is really there to serve Los Angeles. I like to say my company this year, our top line will be roughly $3 billion US. We'll make about $1 billion. But every cent of that money gets put back into building this airport and fixing the airport, growing the airport, delivering an amazing experience, and it's all done really to benefit Los Angeles. So I say it's one of the coolest CEO jobs in the world because my job is to produce more jobs and more benefits for the city. Right. I have to make a lot of money to do that, but the money is not given back to shareholders. It's basically put back. Yeah, just reinvested, continuously reinvested in this eternal asset. We'll be 100 years old. You mentioned the Olympics in 2028. We have the Olympics, and we're really focused on that. We also turn 100 years old in 2028. So we have our 100th birthday, our jubilee, I guess you guys would say, right. And the Olympics coming in that same year. So it's going to be a really exciting year for us.
So that's an extraordinary picture, isn't it? 75 million people coming through the gateway every year, 50,000 people working at the airport today. It's almost a stadium worth of people in and out every single day. I think you also said when we first chatted that no airline has more than 20% share. Is that right? Have I got that right, John, in relation to the operators within the airport? Tell us a little bit about that setup.
Sure, it is a little bit different. We have one airline that's now crept slightly above 20%, but really there's a relatively even split of the major, the kind of the big four U.S. airlines here. But then we also have dozens of global carriers from countries around the world. One of the coolest things about this job, for kind of an aviation geek at heart is. Right. So I don't get to go out on the airfield as often as I can. They keep me, keep me in headquarters more than I want. But when I do get out, I get to go on the airfield. It's amazing to drive down and see, dozens of different tails of, I love aircraft tails, and you can see a more variety of tails, at this airport. There's probably 10 airports in the world that have the variety of tails that we have here. So for an aviation geek, that is really super cool. The Airbus 380, that double-decker jumbo jet that fascinates people. We'll have most airports in the world have never even seen one of those things. Most days we have 5 on the ground at the same time every day. So it's the sheer scale of things here is really, really crazy. I mean, it's you just have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, those A380s are something, aren't they? I think I was on one only last week. There are many headlines around LAX. As I say, for any of us, myself, I'm talking about slightly older. LAX has played out in our lives in some way, shape, or form. So it's the most famous, it's the most criticized, it's the most loved, it's the most loathed. It's all of these things. So what was the reality that you found when you got into the role 2 years ago?
So, and it is all those things, and I think that's what makes it so exciting for me, and that's what makes me love this job so much. I found when I got here, candidly, I found an airport that was an iconic airport. But that had lost its way at some point. We had not taken care of our core infrastructure, the sewer pipes and the roofs and the air conditioners, all the stuff that's not the cool, sexy stuff that you have ribbon cuttings for, but that underpins all of that cool stuff that sits on top. We really hadn't invested in that like we should, and we have major failures frequently on that. And when we have those failures, they disrupt our guests, which we think a lot about. But I also think about my frontline employees who have to go explain to the guests, what went wrong. And it's not their fault that, the leaders didn't replace that sewer 10 years ago when it should have been replaced, but they're the ones out front, having to kind of bear the brunt of that, for, in front of our customers, in front of our guests. And so, I found that the infrastructure here was not, up to par and hadn't been well maintained. And we also were, kind of struggling to shake off, candidly, the effects of the pandemic.
Right. I was going to ask about that, John, because that must have hit all airports incredibly hard.
It did. It hit all airports incredibly hard. I think it hit some harder than others. It,
Right.
it hit some states harder than others, and different states made different decisions about how to, lock down, open up. There were all those. And we this region recovered very slowly. The airport had recovered very slowly. I'd been here a few months, and I spent the first few months like every day just walking the entire airport, walking all of my employee spaces. I mean, kind of doing what I just trying to learn what's going on. That one day I was out walking with a team of execs and my leaders, and there were COVID signs, mask signs on every door to the airport. I finally realized that I walked by and I said, "Hey, why are the COVID masking 6-foot masking signs still on the doors?" And they said, somebody said, "Well, they were there for COVID." And I said, "Yeah, huh? But why are they still there?" And they just hadn't been taken down. It was just kind of, but it was really, it seems like a simple thing, but it was really emblematic of almost a, just kind of an acceptance.
Right.
It had just kind of stayed there because no one said, take it down. So I said, let's get the signs down. And they said, when do you want them down? And I said, yesterday. COVID was over 2 years ago. So 2 years ago would have been the best answer. So start taking them down today and let's just get them down as quickly as we can. And, for a few months, my team would get, little text pictures of COVID signs that I still found up at all hours of the day and night. I would text them and, but we got them down and we did that to send a message that, kind of that's behind us and we're moving forward. Yeah, so there was kind of a hangover, I think, from the pandemic that they had not managed to shake. They'd had a CEO depart ahead of plan and didn't have a bench. So there was a lot of things had happened, and so some of the things I found were candidly worse than I expected. But the one thing I found that was better than I expected, because walking around and seeing the conditions that the airport was in and the conditions the employee workspaces were in, I would have expected employees to be, kind of disengaged, checked out. If you're not getting taken care of, you take care of yourself. I mean, that's the human side of us. But I found so many of the team members here still passionate about the airport. Passionate. I mean, people who'd worked there their whole life, people who had their mom worked here and now they were working here. I mean, we have families that work here. Yeah, so I found still kind of a core group of passionate team members that were really struggling to do what to succeed every day at work, and weren't being equipped and trained and led to be their best, and that's what I found when I got here.
And you coming into this role as a brand new CEO with all of the experience that you had, was there a single priority for you, or were there multiple immediate priorities for you in order to try and, in some ways, pull LAX up by its bootstraps and remotivate people? Was there a single priority that was an obvious flashing light for you?
For me, yes. It was the employees. It was the team.
People.
It was, and it sounds trite. It sounds cliche to talk about how people first, but I was really, candidly, appalled in some cases at the condition that our employees were working in, the workspaces that were dirty, workspaces with leaking roofs and equipment that didn't work, and I mean, and I really felt like leadership had failed the team, but by prioritizing them and telling them, and we had a really hard, honest conversation with kind of where we are. We did a net promoter score look at our employee engagement. I used PS to do other things, and my people leader decided to use NPS, and it was actually negative. And I'd never seen a negative NPS score. I'd used it for other things before in other businesses. I remember saying, how would it be negative? And they started to say, well, sir, here's the formula. And I'm like, no, I understand the formula. I've just never seen it get to a negative number. But
did you think to yourself, why have I taken this job at this point?
Yeah, there were times. No, I've never once regretted. I honestly,
Yeah.
I've never ever. I've had days that are really really hard, and I've gone home
Mm.
kind of disappointed in
Yeah.
myself and dejected. But I've never once regretted that. But we said from this point forward we were going to be a people first organization. I remember standing up. We do a state of LAX kind of big dinner speech thing, and the
Yeah.
CEO to talk about LAX, and there's 1,000 people in the room, and the sponsors pay for it, which are generally airlines. And my first one, I got up and on the dais, I said, "Hey, I just want everybody to hear it here first. I am prioritizing, our Los Angeles World Airports employees above every single thing at the airport, ahead of customers, ahead of airlines, and a couple of guests from the audience. But I said, we absolutely have to do this. There's no way that our people can take care of you if they're
Yeah.
struggling to kind of to survive and thrive themselves. So it seemed like an obvious decision to me and to my senior leadership team. And we kind of put that flag in the ground, and then we said something I think was important. I was addressing a union group, and I said, I wasn't wearing a suit that day because I don't wear a lot of suits, but I said, when a suit talks, don't watch their mouth, kind of watch their hands, watch where they spend their money, because where the money goes, that's kind of that's a corporation where you spend your money that's intent. And I said, so hold me to these promises, and check back in a year and see how we've changed our budget, see how we've changed our priorities. And then we were about 2 months from printing our annual budget that year. And I went to my CFO and I said, I want to see money in every single section shifted to employee initiatives. And she said, well, the budget's about to be done. And I said, great. And I want to see money shifted into employee initiatives. And some people came back with a coconut shell game. And they got sent back to do more work, but we actually pivoted our budget within 2 months to focus more on our employees. We didn't neglect everything else. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time.
But that
But
was the priority.
that was absolutely a priority, and it remains a priority because we're not anywhere close. In the first 9 months, we were able to raise our net promoter score by 17 points. We climbed out of the negative.
Right.
We had no idea. Nobody had ever seen a negative, so we said let's try to move it 10 points, and we moved it 17. But we are making progress, and now the employees see that things can change, and now the momentum is starting to build, and that's what is super exciting. Like at this kind of time in this kind of Wawa arc, we're now seeing that that flywheel starting to turn. It's starting to turn faster.
That's the action speaks louder than words, isn't it? And I want people to understand that was a fascinating decision you made, because you decided to really invest in the employees, your people, as opposed to over rotating, which many people would have done on customers and airlines. So, as you said, there's always a balance. Now, I know that the LAX is undergoing what may be described as a once-in-a-generation transformation. I think it's a $30 billion program, and it's in full public view, John. So, how do you steer a $30 billion program of transformation where everyone is looking at you? I'm assuming you're getting pressure from the public, pressure from the customers, political scrutiny, all kinds of scrutiny. How do you operate in that environment?
So we do get all that scrutiny, and part of being able to operate in that environment is having a support system. Our airport it's owned by the city of Los Angeles. Ultimately, I work for the mayor of Los Angeles. She's the one who gave me this opportunity. She gave me a clear mandate. We have the Olympics coming, as you mentioned.
Yeah, we'll get onto that.
Yeah, a clear vision for the airport 2 years ago was not ready for the Olympics, and we have to be ready, and the Olympics don't move. So I have a clear mandate from my ultimate boss, the mayor, a clear mandate from the board. So I get asked a lot about the politics, and I say, look, I wouldn't say there's no politics. I mean, that'd be naive to say that we have a city council.
Just add human beings, and you get a bit of politics, right?
But yeah, you do. But what I tell my team is that the best thing we can do to kind of contribute to the political conversation is run a really excellent airport. If we do an excellent job, then nobody talks about us. They only talk about the good things. So we really, we've been able to create, I would say, kind of the freedom to maneuver and do our jobs, by being given the support from above. And, in my case, it's a pretty heavily political system, but I think that lesson applies to any organization. If you as a leader feel, supported, and everybody, even if you're the CEO, everybody's got a boss, or everybody's got, some group that they belong to. Rarely is somebody the ultimate decision maker, So I think that, by knowing that you have the support and that, they have, the classic, my board has my back, my mayor has my back, I have my team's back, that's given us the kind of freedom to, I wouldn't say ignore the day to day, but, kind of keep our heads down, focus on, we're making decisions that have 30 to 50-year impacts. So we can't be distracted, by the day to day. So we need to create that space to operate and think long term. But ironically, one of the ways we have to do that is by taking care of all the little day-to-day things so that people don't complain. The traffic, the traffic in Los Angeles is, a bit of a thing that is real. Notorious. The airport traffic has been notorious for years, and we have a solve for that coming in just a few months. But, so we do have to work really, really hard on all the 1,000 different things that go into the customer and employee experience and kind of the community experience, because we impact everybody around us. Even if you're not, if you live in, one of those homes nearby the airport, even if you have nothing to do with the airport that day, we might impact your drive to work, your drive to pick up your kids at school. So we balance 1,000 little small things every day to kind of keep things efficient and smooth as we can for our customers and, again, all of our stakeholders. But what we're really trying to do is think very, very long term. I mean, again, this airport's been here for 98 years. It's going to be here for another 98 years. And, we feel an obligation as, we're stewards of, really a perpetual asset. And so that's how we think about managing, this big complex, organization.
Well, you're the custodian for now, aren't you? And there is a real legacy element to what you're doing, what you're all doing for this airport. And you mentioned the Olympics, so let me move to that, because the greatest show on earth is coming to town in 2 years. And I remember when we had the Olympics here in 2012 in London, and I knew a number of the police officers who were involved in the policing operation, and it is the biggest show in town. And so when the world arrives in LA for the Olympics, I'm assuming all of these things you'll get right. Maybe success means that nobody actually notices because everything just works. You might find that there are no applause, John, but there's silence. So what are you going to define success by in 2 years once the Olympics are finished? Do you know? Do you have a feeling of what success will look and feel like for you all post the Olympics?
Yes, yeah, we do. I think a couple things. Yeah. We're focused, on the Olympics because it's a great classic foreseen function. It is a date that is not moving. Other deadlines you can move yourself. Maybe that deadline.
This isn't moving, right?
Not going to move. So we're working very hard on that. But this is an asset that was here 98 years ago. It'll be here 98 years from now. So we say, we're building something, we're transforming ourselves ahead of the Olympics, but Los Angeles deserves an amazing airport in 2027 and 2029 and 2039, not just in 2028. So that's kind of how we think about that. But the transformation has already begun, and we're rebuilding an entire terminal.
Is that Terminal 5?
It is Terminal 5. Right. And our previous terminals have been, I would say, good, nice. Terminal 5 is going to be what in the industry is a Skytrax 5-star terminal. There's only 2 terminals in the entire United States.
Tell us what you mean by that, John.
It's the highest rating for customer satisfaction you can get for an airport. It's an independent agency that rates airports and airlines around the world. There are many Skytrax 5-star facilities in Europe. There are many in the Middle East and Asia. There's only 2 in the United States, and we're going to have the 3rd one. And we did that deliberately to kind of put this flag in the ground that, going forward, our standard is going to be excellence. Our standard is not just going to be good enough. You mentioned that, this is LA. I mean, this is a city that has not just, shaped trends. It has invented trends. It has launched trends into the world for 100 years. And our airport, at the end of the day, didn't really feel like LA. When I walked around and was considering taking on this role, I spent many hours walking around. I mean, every inch of the airport, inside and out, just kind of imagining, what would I do if I was here? And one thing that struck me, I remember telling the search committee, that it doesn't, for the most part, it doesn't feel like LA. There's a couple of LA stores here and there, but you could be anywhere. You could be, any other city in the US.
Right.
And we're in Los Angeles. This is a city that literally everybody in the world, you could walk up to someone, on the streets of, Dar es Salaam. And if you say Los Angeles, they're probably going to have a mental image of it. May or may not be right. May or may not be what you would have or I would have, but they're going to have an image of it. But if you walked around the airports, you wouldn't get it. So we're infusing this amazing city into the airport. And our first kind of flag in the ground is Terminal 5. And we said it's going to be 5-star. It's going to have, if you've been to Los Angeles, there's an observatory, an old observatory, the Griffith Park Observatory, this beautiful old building that literally sits perched on a hill above Los Angeles in the Hollywood Hills. And some people call it the hood ornament for downtown Los Angeles. And it's kind of the nickname for that. We are building our own observatory in Terminal 5. We're going to have star shows where big kids and little kids can lay on their back and look up at this beautiful screen and watch the stars. They'll be able to go and then look at the sky through this big Oculus. They'll be able to go outside and look through telescopes at the beach and look at airplanes. So, we're building a terminal that really feels like LA, so that when, a first-time visitor comes in from Dar es Salaam, never been here before, it feels like what they expected. When an Angelino who grew up here, it feels like LA for them. And for you who was coming here, as a child, it'll make you feel like LA when you step off the plane. That is the vision we have for our airport ahead of the Olympics. And, we're transforming every terminal. We can't rebuild every terminal. Obviously, we lack the capital or the time to do that. But every terminal is going to have LA infused into it ahead of the Olympics. So in 2028, what we want to deliver to the world is, kind of the LA that they dream about. The LA that, people have come to LA for generations to, it's literally the place of dreams. It's Hollywood. It's music. It's the beach. It's sun. Your brilliant David Hockney moved here, for the color of our sky. He moved here to paint the color of the sky in LA. And we're going to bring that all into the terminal. We're going to show people that in 2028 for the Olympics, but then they're going to see that forever in LA. That's going to be, kind of the legacy that we want to leave for Angelinos.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it actually answers a question I had on my mind, because LAX actually is part and parcel of a very famous city. And people might have thoughts of, they think it's traffic, it's glamour, it's inequality, it's creativity, it's reinvention, it's Hollywood, whatever that might be. But as you say, it's all of those things, but there are some things which are deeply synonymous with Los Angeles. So you've answered the question, Reginald, was the airport has to reflect the soul of the city and the best parts of the city, because it's a little bit like a reception of an organization. The reception staff are almost your first contact with the organization. In some ways, your first contact for people, 75 million people a year coming in and through Los Angeles. So you're a gateway, but you are first contact, aren't you? You represent the soul of the city.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned the, kind of the emotional, kind of an airport. And that's really, really big. And, when I got into the industry, just, 15, 20 years ago into the airport side, we were just starting to talk about that. Airports didn't really think about the experience that way, and that customer experience now that is
the human connection, John.
Exactly. But if you think about it, I mean, if, whether, nobody, no matter how much, I love airports, nobody says, hey, let's just go out to the airport this afternoon. That's very rare. They're going, through an airport to get somewhere, and it's, to go see a loved one, to go to an important business meeting, to go to a funeral, something sad. There's often emotion connected, with any journey. And then as an airport, we know that, no matter how hard we try, we're an unfamiliar environment to most people. We can measure, we put, galvanic skin, response, measurements on people's fingers. You can measure, pulse rate, you can watch eye movement, and we do this to, test different concepts on customers. So airports can be a challenging place. But if we can change that experience and kind of give you the best of this amazing city. I mean, this is literally one of the most iconic cities, on the planet. If we can give you the best of that city, we can help that emotional side of the journey for the customer. And what's really fascinating about all customer experience work is, we don't just have one customer. I mean, everybody does, customer segmentation, and, we have our half dozen segments that we've kind of, bucket people in. But the airport means so many things to so many people, and even our quest to, we've said we're going to put the LA in LAX. We think LA's never actually really been in LAX, so our little kind of slogan is we're putting the LA in LAX. And we've had some really fascinating executive, I'll call them debates, arguments, very passionate. Some of the most passionate debates I've had have been whether palm trees are Los Angeles or not. They are not native to Los Angeles. And I have some diehard Angelinos on my team who will bow up, and, kind of the gloves come off when you say, we're going to have palm trees, because they are not native. But, we finally said, you know what, you got the native Angelinos might not like them, but the rest of the world thinks LA has palm trees. So we're getting palm trees. But so it's been really fun to figure out, LA means so many things. I mean, we've got, dozens of different neighborhoods. I mean, you can drive 5 miles and eat, 20 different, like every third block is a different, Little Ethiopia, Little Italy. I mean, it's just like, it's just this
It's a
amazing
huge mix. It's a huge melting pot.
Yeah, exactly. And so now the challenge is, how do you distill the best of that down and bring it to the airport? Because we said, one time we said we don't want to look like, a Chili's or whatever. Like all of LA is just on every wall. So, we've got different themes, and we're trying to distill that down and get to an LA that means something to a fifth generation Angelino,
Yeah.
and to that first time person who is, coming here to go to the Olympics, or to literally, to start their dream, to relocate, to, try to, launch a family, launch a career. And we got to be, we got to mean something to all of those people. And that's the challenge. And that's why it's really so fun, is that intellectual challenge. It's both intellectual and emotional. And there's, we say there's science and sorcery to it. And that's what makes it's so much fun for us to do.
Well, there's science and soul, isn't there? And as I sit here thinking about this conversation, John, you must have one of the widest customer bases out of any business I may speak to, because it's literally anyone and everyone. It might be almost impossible to really define your customer base with 75 million, as you say. It's a gateway for the world. So I love that one of the things that you're focusing on is actually how does the transformation of the airport represent the soul of the city? And the city means so much to so many for so many different reasons. I don't even know where to start, John, as I start to think through this, but I can see why you took on the role. Listen, I've got to ask a question about the Spider Building. Let me call it the Spider Building, if that's its name. It's one of the most recognizable airport structures. Maybe it's one of the most recognizable buildings, most iconic buildings. It's certainly something that I've grown up with, having seen it up close. It's been, I have no idea how many movies have featured this particular building. If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, John, what are we talking about when we talk about the Spider Building?
So we're talking about, we call it the theme building. It's called Spider Building is very common too. We call it the theme building. So that is the iconic, UFO futuristic spider, spaceship building right in the heart of LAX. That, to your point, I mean, everybody, and it was interesting. I was actually in a room the other day of design professionals, and I challenged them to name another airport building in the world, and they struggled other than that building. So it's really fascinating how famous that is. That was pretty much it. And these were design folks. But so that building was designed by an architect named Paul Revere Williams, and it was to kind of celebrate, the space age. It was, you could tell obviously of the era. And what's really interesting, he was a brilliant architect, designed hundreds of buildings around Los Angeles, designed buildings for many of the Hollywood legends, many of the Hollywood stars. He designed their homes. He designed them at a time when he was not allowed to live in most of the neighborhoods he designed homes in. He was actually, I read, when I learned about that building and learned about him, I read a little about him, and there's a story that he learned to write upside down because his clients wouldn't sit next to him. He had to sit across the table from clients when he showed them plans for their homes. And despite all that, he designed that building that is now like literally the most famous building, one of the most famous buildings in the world, and definitely the most famous airport building in the world. We are actually, we have a project going on starting right now that is going to fix the exteriors of that building. It's been restaurants throughout the years that have come and gone.
Okay. It's closed
We
down at the
have,
moment, isn't it? It's
it is closed to the
yeah.
public. We use it occasionally for very special events, but we have some. Well, maybe for your 400th episode, we can announce what we're going to do. That we have some really secret and exciting plans for really re-energizing that theme building and turning it into, kind of it's the beating heart of our airport. And we have some really clever plans that we're working on in secret that will re-energize that building and do something, worthy of that building.
Well, that's super exciting.
And when if you come to LA again, I'd love to take you up there.
Deal.
It's really cool inside. I mean, it inside looks what the outside looks like. It's super cool, and the views are brilliant.
Well, deal, and who knows actually? Because as I say, the FBI said, "Could I come over to LA to have a chat with them?" So if that happens, John, then certainly come to you. And as I say, I'd love to hear that it's a secret. And so when you're ready to reveal that secret, do think of us, and we'd love to kind of touch base with you again and follow up, because that's always fun too. With this role, this is your first CEO role. You're 2 years in. It's iconic. It's all the challenges and aspirations and hopes that we spoke about. Is there a standout aha moment or leadership lesson for you in this journey for you this last 2 years? Is there something that really is front of mind for you, which has been compelling?
It was really the leaning into the people. I mean, I look back on. I look back on that moment, and I just realized that I kind of went home one night, and I had been I'd been walking we had multiple office buildings. We were scattered in different buildings kind of around the LAX airport and on and off airport. And I was walking in one of the buildings, and a lot of the workspaces, kind of the work cubicles they were filled with, old fax machines, broken printers. And I had been walking around, like literally I had made it a point. I was going to go to every single workspace and introduce myself to every one of my 3,400 employees. And I planned to get through this. It took longer than I thought. That was a good lesson learned. It took a lot longer than I thought, but, and I was talking to this employee who's the workspace next to him was literally being used as an old printer graveyard or junkyard or something, fax machines actually. And I had asked, what are those doing there? And someone said, well, sir, they're broken. And I said, okay, but why are they broken in there? And they said, well, they're waiting to be surplused. We can't just throw out our stuff. We're government. We have to surplus it, make sure it gets sold. And we've got a warehouse full of surplus stuff. And I looked at these things, and they'd obviously been there. I mean, they were fax machines. I mean, so they, I knew they hadn't been there for a couple of months.
Their best days were over.
They were over like 10 years ago. And I gathered my senior team, and I said, hey, we're going to have LAWA spring cleaning day. And they said, what's that? And I said, we're going to rent dumpsters, and we're going to drag dumpsters in front of every building we have. And we're going to give everybody a pair of work gloves, and we're going to clean out our offices, and we're going to throw out all the old stuff, and we're going to do LAWA spring cleaning. And they looked at me, and I said, and I'm serious, and let's get it going. So go get some dumpsters, and, let's do this thing, and I went home that night, and I just kind of said, we're done. I mean, we're going to start with cleaning out our workspaces, and it seems so basic. And so I kind of made that, and I don't try to do many, kind of decrees. I try to, lead by, kind of influence and collaboration, but, I had kind of decreed that. And a few weeks later, when we were getting closer to it, and I was imagining union grievances for working out of class, and, somebody, all the stuff, and, and people upset about you. Cause I got a little incoming on people are going to be cleaning. I'm like, well, it's your own stuff. Sure, you can clean it. And I started to second guess myself. And then I kind of said, well, I've already announced it, made a big deal of it. So now I kind of look weak if I go back. So I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm just
gone through the door already, John.
I'm through the door already. There's nobody behind me, so I might as well keep going. But I made it was really kind of that, like, there was a couple week period where I just like made a commitment to myself that, like, I'm going to fix people here, fix I'm going to equip my people to succeed. And if I can do only that, I'll go home every day pretty happy. There's other stuff that maybe I can't influence, but if I can, kind of make this place, better than I found it the day before, for our team, that'll make me happy. And that'll be kind of what I'm going to do every day. And every day I'm going to kind of chip away at something. I say often, I literally wake up in the morning, almost every morning, thinking about some sort of people issue. Generally, the last thing I work on at night is some sort of people issue because it's everything. And that unlocked for me, and I'm a person who, and I'm sure some of my former HR colleagues are going to be watching this podcast and saying, now he is. And I will say that I'm a person who, early in my career was, I would grouse about HR and HR this and rules and this and HR was, until later in my career, always seen as kind of the obstacle, the impediment, like, kind of a thing that you had to do. And now I've realized that it's everything, and it's because it's people. And if you can't get the people right, you can't take care of your customers. You can't make money for shareholders if that's your corp. I mean, if your people aren't taken care of, and if they're not equipped to succeed, you're done. And as a leader, your fundamental job is equip your people to succeed. So you fail as a leader, your organization fails. So that was really it. And it sounds really basic, but it was that.
It's
so
people first.
Put it through the people lens.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's a clear message from this conversation around you putting the people at the heart of the solution and the transformation. John, it's been amazing to chat to you. I think we have to chat again in time because you're embarking on an incredible transformational journey. Perhaps the word transformational is overused in some context, but you are transforming something which is iconic, which serves millions upon millions of people a year. And to your point, serves 50,000 people as their livelihood base. So this is really important from a human point of view. So I hope that maybe we can do it in person, on site, in the shadow of the Spider Building, or whatever we call it. But I just want to say thank you so much, John, for taking the time and having this conversation on the Leadership Enigma. I hope you've enjoyed it too.
Thank you, Adam. This was a lot of fun. I love my job. I love this. I love this city. And this is something worth doing. Like you said, this is an iconic airport, and we are in the process of a major transformation. And we can't wait to welcome you and welcome the world. We hope to see you before 2028, but we'll see the world in 2028.
We'll try and make sure that happens. That's for sure. You've been an absolute superstar, John. Thank you so much. We will stay connected. We will have a further conversation. But best of luck with this transformation. We will follow you very, very closely when we will talk again. But many thanks.
Thank you.
Take care. Join us again next week for more curiosity and insight with the Leadership Enigma. We'd love to hear your comments on today's show as well as suggestions for future topics and guests. Get in touch with me on LinkedIn or visit us at www.leadersenigma.com. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe on all your major podcast platforms and on our dedicated YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining the community.